Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the Bet Rivers Network. We come to you on this Saturday night. One more day to go before we put the Sweet 16 in place for next week's action. A lot of chalk. Only one seeded team. That means the teams that are 1, 2, 3, or 4 seeded. Only one is lost. That's Gonzaga, which lost to Texas. Good performance by Texas. A lot of times that playing game gets some momentum. They have this year. Sean Miller is a very good coach. Hey, he went through some tough times because he had some scandal, but listen, I've known Sean Miller since he was the uh, freshman point guard at Pitt. I mean, he's the son of a coach. He uh, he was kind of a little bit of a phenom growing up because he was a great ball handler. He was on the Johnny Carson show when he was like 12 years old. Um, Went to Pittsburgh, was recruited ironically by a Pittsburgh assistant you might have heard of by the name of John Calipari. Uh, who was a bit of a card when he was an assistant in Pittsburgh. I laugh because uh, when Calipari was recruiting, he was known to be a very aggressive recruiter. He was recruiting against St. John's in that era for Pittsburgh. And they were in battle for a player. I don't remember which player it was. I really don't remember which player it was. But a prominent player. But he told the family of the recruit that Carnesecca was hit with a fatal disease, that he was in really bad shape. Carnesecca found out about it, went crazy, and never liked Calipari because of that. And all Louis did was live another 40 years. I mean, so typical Calipari. But he recruited Sean Miller. Sean Miller started 4 years. He was a very heady point guard on those good Pittsburgh teams with Jerome Lane and Charles Smith, and he has been a very, very good coach. Smart basketball guy. Was a heady player, point guard, as you would expect. Field, court general, and he's a smart basketball coach. He always has been. And an upset went over Gonzaga. Let me run down today's games, then we'll get to tomorrow's games, and then obviously we'll spend a bunch of time on the St. John's game. This St. John's game is enormous. I can't tell you how big it is. Michigan rolled. What do you expect? The Michigan size and talent is scary. Houston rolled over Texas A&M. Now they go home for 2 games. Duke had 16 turnovers. Boozer had 2 points in the first half. Each Boozer had 2 points in the first half. They gave up 11 offensive rebounds, and they still won by 23. Michigan State, matter of fact win. Sweet 16, dangerous team. Izzo. Illinois, VCU lost a player early, which hurt. Good player. Illinois, except for one run that VCU made in the game, Illinois rolled. Great Sweet 16 game. Illinois, Houston. I mean, they're both legitimate, terrific teams, and they will play, except Illinois has got to play Houston now 2 miles from the Houston campus. All right. We talked about that the other day. Texas upsets Gonzaga. I didn't like the way Gonzaga handled the last couple of minutes of the game. Nebraska. Now, they had never won an NCAA tournament game coming into this. They flooded, as they do for every sport. Their fan support is insane. It was a complete Nebraska house. Played a great game with Vandy. Great game. And if you saw it, I don't know if you did, but if you stayed with it, game's tied. Nebraska comes down and scores 2.2 on the clock, and Vandy almost wins it on a half-court 3 that hits the backboard, goes down into the net, spins around, and comes out. It would have won the game. And then High Point, which is a nice team, gave Arkansas all they could handle. They really, really did. Martin, their little point guard, had 30. Acuff, who is a sensational player and is going, there's so many good freshmen who are going to be big draft picks. Acuff is a sensational player. He's going to be a terrific pro. If the problem is I got like 4 or 5 guys I think are all gonna be drafted in the top 3 picks. I don't know how they're gonna decide this, but this is a great year to have a pick at the top of the draft. There are real players in this draft. Um, so that's where we are. Like I said, you have, uh, Duke, which will await the winner of St. John's and Kansas. You have Michigan State, which will await the winner of UCLA, UConn, both teams banged up. Nebraska will await most likely Florida, which they don't really want. I mean, they're gonna be in a regional with Florida, Illinois, and Houston. Good for them. Um, Arkansas waits for Arizona. Texas waits for probably Purdue. Michigan will get the winner of Texas Tech, Alabama, which is a flat out toss up. Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky, Iowa State. Now, Iowa State is probably going tomorrow without their best player. I told you about Jefferson yesterday. Sounds like tonight. I just checked about an hour ago, and they said highly doubtful. So now, I don't know if he's going to try tomorrow. There's no way. It sounds like he's not going to play. But even if he does, I don't see how he can be a factor. That's a big deal. This is a big player for them. I mean, this is their best all around player. Big hit for Iowa State. Okay. Now, 8 games tomorrow. Miami, Purdue starts us off at 12-10. Kentucky gets Iowa State. Purdue's a 7.5 point favorite. Kentucky gets Iowa State in the 245. Again, standalone, and then the games start bunching up. 5:15 in the sweet spot. Duke was in the sweet spot today. You knew that. St. John's, Kansas is in the sweet spot tomorrow. Everyone's making a big deal about Self and Pitino, which I understand. I mean, they're both legendary coaches, very different. But the bottom line is, this is more about the fact that this is such a golden opportunity for St. John's. 6-10, Tennessee, which is favored. The 6 is favored against the 3. Tennessee's a 1.5 favorite over Virginia. 7-10, Iowa against Florida. Florida is a 10.5 point favorite. I don't see Iowa having a chance. Utah State, which plays an interesting game and has an interesting style of play, but they're not going to beat Arizona. Arizona's an 11.5 point favorite. And then UCLA, UConn. Cronin and Hurley. The Bruins need no introduction. UConn needs no introduction. UConn did not look good the other night, although Reed obviously had a career game. UCLA was without their high scorer on Friday. They may be again tomorrow. UConn could be without Silas Mary tomorrow and Stewart again tomorrow. We were without both of them on Friday night. It hurt them. They could be without both of them again tomorrow. They're vulnerable right now, and they're not shooting the ball well. They're not playing well. Now, if UCLA was at full strength, watch out. Now, I don't know if they will be at full strength. They look like they're missing a player. UConn could be missing 2 players. Okay, that's the 8 games tomorrow. That will pare us down to the 16. As we said, only one seeded team has lost so far, and that is Gonzaga. We'll save the St. John's, Kansas preview and analysis for the end. The games are good tomorrow. I was afraid of the games today. I didn't think they had a chance to be really good. The Nebraska game was good. The Texas game was pretty good. It wasn't a great game. It was an upset, but it wasn't a great game. The Duke TCU game was good for about 25 minutes. the officials did a bad job in that game. First of all, the other teams always feel like they're getting hosed by Duke and by the officials. We all know that. I mean, that's been going on for 40 years. Okay. But then when something really happens where they miss a goaltending call and then Dixon, with the official coming by him, has some choice words for the official. Hey, the official, let him have a say. You just blew a call right in front of him, a big goaltending call. It was a bad miss. Let him have his say. Let him curse you as he runs by, and then let it go. Nobody knows it except you. Turns around and tees him up. I mean, just wrong. Just wrong. Um, they weren't going to beat him anyway, but they did get in bad foul trouble in the game. Uh, Duke showed their toughness. They got their big guy back. He seemed to be okay today. He's a little rusty, but he seemed to be okay. They're not getting the point guard back, which is going to hurt them. They had 16 turnovers today, and a lot of them bad turnovers, which is going to hurt them next week. But let's worry about them next week. Now, get started on your tourney bets with a tourney time bonus bet from Bet Rivers. Betters in. Well, this one, I guess this one's over, so we got to wait till they reload one because this is only through March 22nd. That's tomorrow. So I guess we got one more day of it. Okay, we can still use it because this is through tomorrow. Okay, so here you go. Bettors get a $10 bonus bet to use on NCAA tournament games when they enter the code Francesa 315 in the Bet Rivers app. The code again is Francesa, FRANCESA 315. It's available to Bet Rivers bettors in New York and New Jersey. Offer ends tomorrow, March 22nd. Must be 21. Eligible players only. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New Jersey, in New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text all caps HOPE NY 467-369. Everyone is making a big deal about Self and Pitino. They've only met once in their life. Pitino was at Iona when they met. I think that's a subtext here. I mean, you are looking at two great coaches, and you got to understand these are different programs, though. St. John's has not been a big time program. Obviously, Rick has revitalized it. St. John's hasn't gone deep in the NCAA tournament in a very long time. Kansas, which has struggled the last couple of years with Self, has had a history. They make the tournament every year. They win, conference tournaments almost every year. They're ranked in the top 10 almost every year. They get to the Sweet 16 a lot of years. I mean, I think he's been there 17. I don't know how many times he's been there. That's a ton. He's been to 4 Final Fours. They vacated 1. A lot of coaches got vacated stuff, not just Pitino. He's got 2 national championships. That first one against Memphis, don't remind me. They did a special on that game last night, and I was like, do I have to watch this again? I mean, that game still bothers me. I'm not going to go into the chapter and verse here because I don't want to, waste the time with it. But I made a big bet on Memphis to win that tournament. And it's over. I mean, I got it won. And then they start, the wheels came off. Missing free throws, making mistakes. Then Kansas starts dropping big shots. And the next thing you know, they're beaten. Just awful. It's the one that got away. Now, obviously, John's had success since then, but that was a tough one. That was really a tough one. It really was. It was a game they should have won. I mean, easily should have won, but they didn't. He's won 2 championships. There's only 3 active coaches who have won 2 championships. You know that. Self, Pitino, Hurley. Hurley doesn't have the body of work that these other guys have. You've had a lot of legacy coaches in the NCAA tournament. And it's a funny thing. I've been around the tournament, as I said, since 1978, but since 1982 with CBS was about the year my first year with CBS in the tournament. It was the first time CBS got the tournament. The Georgetown, North Carolina game. Um, I've been fortunate to know most of these coaches. It's funny, Self is the one I probably, although I've interviewed him and I know him to say hello to him, I don't know him very well at all. I mean, Krzyzewski, who is probably the guy that if you put, in the modern era, you gotta decide what you're gonna do with Wooden, who won 10 championships. He won 7 in a row, as you know. Now this is long before anybody it's also a different tournament in those days. It was a abbreviated tournament in those days. But he had Kareem for 3 straight titles, and then he had Walton, and he should have won 3 more titles. He won 2, and then the senior year, and that still bothers me because growing up, I was a tremendous and I got to know him very well, like, everyone knew him very well. I mean, Bill was friendly with everybody, but I got to know Bill very well, and saw him a lot when he was broadcasting, he came on the show a lot, but that senior year bothered me because I was a big Walton fan, and, they went 30-0 Kareem wins his 3 championships. He goes 88-2 in his 3 years. Remember, he couldn't play as a freshman, and remember, you couldn't dunk. They took the dunk out for Kareem. Just think about that. They took the dunk out of college basketball because of the presence of, at the time, Lou Alcindor. Imagine that. They changed the rules for this player. So, he wins 3 championships. He goes 88-2. He used to play 30 games in those days. He went 88-2. There was one UCLA player who went in between the cracks and actually went 89-1. It's always a trivia question. That's Larry Farmer. Walton went 30-0. 30-0. His teams provided about most of the 88-game winning streak. UCLA, as you know, in those years, had an 88-game win. Can you imagine such a thing? An 88-game winning streak. They went to Notre Dame. Walton was nursing a bad back. He had a bad back that year. He really got it in his junior year. He actually had it during the NCAA tournament when he was a junior. He was having trouble with his back. I mean, it didn't bother him that much in the NCAA final that year as a junior. All he did was go 21 of 22 from the field and score 44 points. They go to Notre Dame, they lose. Notre Dame breaks the streak. Then they went up, and that year they were into different things. They were into partying, they were into whatever they were into, okay? They weren't paying attention that much to basketball. They had won so much, and they were in a little bit of the counterculture revolution at that time. They went up, and they had what was known at UCLA as the lost weekend. They went to Oregon and lost to Oregon and Oregon State. They used to go up and play, like, if they went on the road, they played Oregon and Oregon State in the same weekend. Washington State in the same weekend. So they went up and they lost to Oregon and Oregon State. Lonnie Shelton, who you remember, if you might have heard that name, had a really good game against Walton. They have now lost 3 games. I mean, they didn't lose. They went undefeated as sophomores, won the championship. Went undefeated as juniors, won the championship. And now they lose a game at Notre Dame, and then they lose 2 games in the Pac-10, and they actually had to go to the last game of the. And in those days, you didn't make the NCAA tournament unless you won your conference. There were no at-large bids. So they went to the last game and actually had to play USC, a good USC team. Uh, and if they lost, they weren't going to the NCAA tournament. UCLA was not going to the NCAA tournament. Bill Walton was not going to the NCAA tournament. Well, I remember watching, and in those days, if anyone's as old as I am, they know that TVS, U Sports Network, they used to put the games, the big college basketball games, on at 11:30 at night, like from the West Coast. UCLA on 11:30 at night. So I'm waiting for this game, and they knew if they lost, they were they're not going to the NCAA tournament. Now, there were 2 times in that era, in the Jabbar era or the Alcindor era, if you want, in those days, and in the Walton era, there were 2 times I saw the team breathing fire where you knew there was not a chance in the world they were going to even consider losing. The first was the second time that Kareem played Elvin Hayes in the semifinals of the NCAA tournament after Elvin Hayes in Houston had beaten them when he had a patch over his eye in the great Astrodome game that really launched college basketball as a product. Um, Elvin Hayes scored like 37 points, and it was a huge game for him. And then they played in the in the semifinals, and UCLA waited for their chance and beat them 101-69. Um, that night when they played USC, I remember the score was 40-8 at the half. I don't remember what the final score was, but it was 40-8 at the half. So they meant business. They went to the NCAA tournament that year. And Tom Burleson at NC State, David Thompson, Monty Tao, Mo Howard, those players from Norm Sloan's NC State team went undefeated that year. They were undefeated. And what annoyed me so much about that game was John Wooden was a proponent of the shot clock before there was a shot clock. He never believed in holding on to the basketball. He didn't like the 4 corners that Dean Smith had. He didn't believe in holding on to the basketball. He was always very much a proponent of the shot clock. So he would never hold the ball. Well, as soon as NC State got a lead late in the overtime, they held the ball, and they went on to win. I remember Monty Tao just making those one-on-ones, so they wound up losing 4 games that year, and they didn't win the championship. So they only won the Walton Jabbar years, won 5 out of 6, 2 for Walton, 3 for Jabbar. But he did win 7 in a row, and he did win 10 overall. But a lot of people felt that he looked the other way with Sam Gilbert, who was a builder and Uncle Sam to all those guys out there, and that Uncle Sam was doing things he shouldn't be doing, and Wooden, who was always kind of the professorial pious type, looked the other way. And I know a lot of coaches who would express that, so that's the question of whether you put Wooden first as the all-time NCAA tournament team. The winningest NCAA tournament coach of all time is, in terms of games won in the tournament, is by far in the modern era, because there's more games and he was there every year, was Coach K. Coach K is a record that I'm not even sure anybody will break. He's got 101 NCAA tournament wins. He went to 13 Final Fours. He's won 5 championships. He is in the modern era, he is the guy. Whether you're talking about Pitino, Calhoun, but even the guys, Roy Williams, the guys who have 2, which would be, Self, Hurley, even Jay Wright, they all line up. Everybody lines up behind Coach K. Now, Knight, who won 3 championships, I'm not sure he would like to line up behind Coach K, because he coached Coach K, and Coach K was his assistant. and he was the boss. But it's fair to say that the difference between the two was in terms of basketball development, in dealing with players and in personality, Mike was able to move forward and roll with the times and change. There came a point where, as brilliant as Knight was, he still wanted to play the game with his principles and his beliefs, and players didn't like to play that way anymore. They didn't wanna set a million down screens. They didn't wanna play his motion offense. They didn't wanna do some of the things he did, but you gotta understand that he was the mad scientist. If I had 1 game to win in the NCAA tournament for my life, and I had 5 days to prepare, and you pick the coach, I'm picking Knight. Of all the guys, I'm picking Knight. That's how impressed I was with Knight. When Knight had the team, he won. You know, when he had the team, he won. Now, late in his career, he did very little because he didn't have a lot of talent because nobody wanted to play for him anymore. He was abusive. He had a short, he had a bad temper. He was highly principled, but he had a bad temper. And he wouldn't change the way he coached. He wouldn't change the way he ran his offense. And the modern player didn't want to play with him. They wouldn't wanna play that way. They wanted to be able to play the modern game, and the game has changed with the shot clock and with the rules liberalized to help the offense and hurt the defense and the three-point shot. The game has changed dramatically. I mean, it has changed unbelievably. You know, I was in Lexington the night Villanova beat Georgetown. That was the last game ever played without the shot clock. If there's a shot clock in that game, Georgetown wins. I think Rowley held the ball 11 times for over 45 seconds. I think 11 times, if I remember it was counted once. So, I mean, I bring this coaching perspective up only because a lot of this is gonna be played in tomorrow. A lot about Pitino and Self and this matchup, historic coaches and the whole thing. Um, to me, I understand that storyline. Doesn't mean a whole lot to me. We know they both had great careers. Phil Self has been at Kansas for over 20 years. He's won a gazillion games. He gets paid a fortune. He's had great success. He's won a couple of championships. He's golden. Pitino has been an incredible program builder everywhere he's been. He's done a brilliant job at St. John's, breathing life into this program, which was dead. He's done it since, and I understand it's a different world now with the NIL and paying out money. And hey, they paid out a lot of money for players. And St. John's, without a Mike Rapoli, doesn't have the ability to pay out $12.5 million for players. I mean, there were schools that paid out more. I think St. John's was like 7th, I saw on the list. But St. John's would be 150th without Rapoli. Getting that money is not easy. And that's a big issue for a lot of schools now in this NIL era, where getting players, rebuilding your team, rebooting your team each year is very different. Calipari goes out again and gets freshmen. I mean, he goes out and gets his A cup. This guy is unbelievable. I don't know where he finds these guys. This guy is sensational. Absolutely sensational. You know, the other story that everyone making a big deal about is the Zuby, Kansas, but to me, I don't even see how that's a big story. He's been in St. John's for 3 years. In the NIL era, that's like a lifetime. These guys come and go every year. This guy's now play on 4 different teams in 4 years. You got guys leaving. I mean, the Michigan point guard was at North Carolina last year. Mitchell, you know, all these guys, okay? I mean, how many guys have come from how many places? How many guys have been in 3 different places, 4 different places in 4 years? They play all over the place. To have a guy for 3 years now is a big deal. He came here 3 years ago. It was the right move, and Pitino and he have meshed. He has grown dramatically, and tomorrow will be a very, very big day for he and his teammates, and that's, to me, is the storyline. The storyline is not him going back to play Kansas, okay? His storyline is not Self and Pitino for me. The storyline is St. John's getting past this game. Last year, that loss to Arkansas was crushing. They have waited a whole year. They have gone through everything. And Pat Riley used to say that to me when we would talk. He'd say, "The hardest thing is to lose late and know you have to go through the off season and the rebuilding and refining of your team and the conditioning program and training camp and the entire regular season and those early rounds of the playoffs just to get back to the same spot. You have to do all those things to just get back to the same spot." And that's where St. John's is tomorrow. And that to me is the story. I remember last year when they lost that game and how crushed everybody around the program was and how crushed Pitino was. Yeah, it stung that he lost to John. I mean, without question, there's a rivalry there. And that hurt. And they were a 2 seed. And things didn't go well with this guy who had a great year. And, the way the game unfolded and they couldn't make it 3 and the whole thing. It was just a disaster. And considering the year they had, they could still say, "Hey, look where we came in 1 year. He got here. We should have made the tournament. We didn't. Now this year, win the Big East, win the Big East tournament, get in the tournament." But they didn't get past this game. They they might very well lose to Duke in the Sweet 16. They'll obviously be underdog. I think they have a great chance to win the game right now with Duke not having a point guard, with Duke not having a lot of, depth. The way Duke's been turning the ball over, I think there's a great opportunity there. Now there's also a couple of good teams that would still be waiting, UConn, but even scarier might be Michigan State. I told you that last week, and you saw it again today. Um, but I think tomorrow is such an opportunity, and it's not gonna be easy. There's gonna be more Kansas fans in the building than St. John's fans. All right, is that a factor? Not a big one. But you're playing Kansas, and I don't care what you think of Kansas and what you think of the year they had and what you think about all the craziness that has, enveloped around Peterson, who without any question is an incredibly gifted physical specimen. How good he's gonna be, how dedicated he's gonna be, how healthy he's gonna be, I worry about players who have a lot of issues in college. Remember, if you listen to me, okay, and we all make bold statements sometimes, and sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. But I probably took more grief for saying I was not a guy who wanted any part of Zion Williamson in the pros. And the reason why was I thought he was going to have major, major problems getting on the court in the pros. And that has turned out to be 100% accurate. This kid would scare me a little bit Now, I might back off and the guy might become Kobe Bryant. I mean, that's always possible. You'd have to do a lot of investigative work because this kid is clearly talented, and he was motivated last night. He started the game 0 for 6, but he's wound up with 26 points. I was skipping around a little bit. I didn't watch every basket, but he did wind up with 26 points, and we know how good he is. Now I'm gonna figure Mitchell's gonna play him tomorrow, and Mitchell is a gifted defensive player, and I'll be fascinated by that matchup. But understand this, whether you think St. John's is playing better, whether you think St. John's has edges, this is Kansas. On their A day, on their A game, they can beat anybody. They beat Arizona this year. Now they beat them in Allen Fieldhouse, which is the toughest place to play in the United States. And you know that Self doesn't lose on big Mondays. I mean, he never loses. And they won that game without Peterson. He cramped up. I mean, like an hour before the game, he said he wasn't playing, which was a big to do that night. He has the number one team in the country coming in, huge audience, the whole big deal, and he's not playing. There was a thought late in February that he wasn't going to play the rest of the year, and that quickly was dispelled. Has played more minutes consistently of late. He scored 26 points. I didn't look to see how many minutes he played. I think he played 30 minutes on Friday night, but I didn't look. I think we played 30. He scored 26 points. I'm going to figure he played 30 minutes. Mitchell's going to play him. He's the perfect guy to play him. They have size. They have talent. They're Kansas. They are college basketball royalty, year in, year out. Not going to win every year. We know that. They haven't been great this year. They're vulnerable. St. John's is a better team day in and day out. Now, in this game, both teams, the guards can be inconsistent from the perimeter. If one guard set is hot and the other one's cold, it could be lights out for that team. Will they be sloppy with the ball? We'll see. That's going to be a big factor. It always is for St. John's. It always is. St. John's has been playing really well. Their defense has been intense. They have jumped out of the gate like lions the last couple of games. All the games at the Big East tournament. The other night, they've opened up big leads early and played from in front. Nice way to play, but their defense has been setting that up for them, getting to the basket. And when they hit threes, hey, Shangri-La. There is a lot of pressure on them tomorrow. And I understand what Pitino said. I saw what he said. Hey, once you get past the first game, you're always playing a good team. They are. They're playing Kansas. Nobody looks down their nose at Kansas. They got a guy who's going to be a lottery pick. A very good chance he could be the first player picked in the draft or in the top 3, depending on which way this thing goes and how he does, dealing with the teams in the next weeks to come. We know how well the front line for St. John's has played. Zuby should have been an All-America this year. I think you could make a case he should have been no less than a second-team All-America, without question. He got screwed there. Does it matter? I mean, I'm sure, it would matter to me if I didn't make All-America, so I'm sure it matters to him. He deserved it. They're playing more confidently. The forward play has been superb from the big 3. The guard play has to be consistent as they go forward here. If they have a game where they shoot blanks, they're going to get beat. They're going to get packed up and go home. They know that. That's what happens in the NCAA tournament. But to me, that's the storyline here. All the heartbreak that went into to this season. And I can't get past. I was in Saratoga. I told you, I'm always in Saratoga in the summer. And Pitino, I'll never forget him telling me how good he thought this team was going to be. And his expectations didn't they didn't flower early. Things didn't work out with the guards. He didn't wanna commit to Mitchell until he had exhausted the guards in the backcourt, and then he put Mitchell in as the 3rd forward and the point forward, and his utilization of Mitchell and his very adept use of Darling has been the key to the team. There are other keys. Zuby's all-around play, the consistency they've gotten in terms of scoring from certain guys. And this team, which was a mess on January 3rd when it played Providence and lost at the Garden on a night when Zuby had 33 and I don't know how many rebounds, 14 or something like that. He had double digits. I think he had 14. I don't know. He had 33 and 4. But the guards were like 5 for 30 and like 1 for 15 from 3. They were awful. In the next game, Mitchell went from playing like 10 minutes to playing big minutes. He's been playing big minutes ever since. And that changed this team. We know he doesn't score except when he goes to the basket, but he does everything else exquisitely. His defense, his open floor play, his offensive rebounding, his attacking the rim, all of it. They're ready for this tomorrow. They're favored tomorrow against a legitimately very talented Kansas team, but a team that hasn't come together the way they thought it would this year. But they're there, and they're dangerous because of who they are and who's on the floor for them. They have size, they have talent, they have physical ability, they have big-time players. It's a big-time roster. They're Kansas. Kansas. Kansas forever in basketball has been remember, Kansas was coached by Fog Allen, who learned from Dr. Naismith. Kansas has been big time from the days of Will Chamberlain, who went to Kansas. Didn't win a championship either. I know we lost in triple overtime to North Carolina and Frank McGuire. The bottom line is, I think they're ready to win this game. I know you say, "Oh, well, they lose to Kansas, they lose to Kansas." I think this will be a very, very tough loss if they lose it. I think to come all the way back to answer UConn the way they did after the beating they took in Connecticut, to win the Big East again, to come back here, this time as a 5 seed, because they didn't have the December. And the Big East didn't have the rating that it needed to have for them to have that year. Let's be honest. Villanova lost. UConn didn't look good. And St. John's, that's all there is in the Big East. It wasn't the Big 10 this year. It wasn't the Big 12 this year. Those leagues are a lot stronger. They got powerhouses. There are some real powerful teams in this country this year. And that's why I said I think St. John's can get to the Final Four. Do I think they're going to win the whole thing? I don't. I mean, I give them a puncher's chance then, but I don't think they'd match up well against Michigan or Arizona. I do think they can match up with this Duke version right now, as is, without the point guard. I want to see them play Duke next week in Washington, D.C. I'll be very disappointed if that doesn't happen. I know all the St. John's fans will be very disappointed if that doesn't happen. And to me, that's the order of the day. Not Zuby going back and into a school he started with, even though he was at St. John's for 3 years. or Pitino versus Self. Listen, they've won a ton. Their legacies are paid. They're in the Hall of Fame. They've won championships. They're rich guys. They've done everything. They've done everything. They still like doing it, but they've done everything. The mortgages are paid. These guys aren't young men anymore. Self's had some issues with his heart. Patino's 73. I mean, these guys aren't young, but they've had great success, and they're giants in the game. So it should be noted, but that's not the storyline for me. The storyline for me is St. John's getting back here to this second game, and this time clearing the hurdle and seizing the opportunity to go play Mighty Duke in DC next week. And their players are ready for this game tomorrow. Subi's ready. They're all ready. I think they'll play well. Like I said, if Kansas plays their A game, if their guards hit their shots, if Peterson goes off, hey, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's not like St. John's a 12-point favorite or a 15-point favorite. They're a 3-point favorite. 3.5, depending on where you are. They deserve to be favored. They're the better team this year. And I think they can have a longer run. But this is a hurdle, and I can't say it any other way. And I'm sure Rick feels the same way. This would be a bitter loss. Not because it's Self, not because it's Kansas, but because he wants the opportunity to go forward with this group. This group that plays so hard. Stan Van Gundy said something last night or the other night. Or I guess it was last night. And he said, St. John's plays harder than anybody in the country. And you know what? They do. This group, to me, he gets more out of it. And I gather, and sometimes things that have life on the internet, who cares? I gathered because he yelled last night with a big lead. They were getting on him for being a psycho. Hey, that's the way he coaches. Is that new to you? You blow a defensive assignment with 4 minutes left and you're up 20, he's going to yell at you. He wants you to play the play properly. He wants you to do what you're supposed to do. Don't make defensive mistakes. Don't not block out. Don't make silly mistakes. Don't give less than 100% effort on any play. And that's what he demands. That's the way he coaches. All of them, always. And he coaches them hard. I respect that. I like that. Somebody has a problem with that? But don't pay attention to some of the crazy stuff. I know the other day when I was talking about Zuby, I said Embiid instead of Hunter Dickinson, who I was thinking about in my head. I don't know. I got a brain warp. What can I tell you? But how could anybody in their right mind try to make a case that I'm not aware of a player who was drafted third in the draft, has been an MVP and a two-time scoring champion in the NBA? Does anybody listen to me talk about basketball and think I'm not aware of Embiid's career? I mean, try and sell out to somebody. I got a bridge to sell you if you think you can sell out to somebody. I mean, come on now. I mean, people who don't know sports can recite Embiid's career to you. You're trying to think that at least I didn't say Will Chamberlain, who also played at Kansas. But I don't know why I said it. Maybe because, the TV was on and I didn't even know I said it. It's funny because I guess it was big on social media. that I said it because, hey, if you make a mistake, it's like what they do with the president all the time, or I've seen him do it with Mad Dog too, and to different people, Stephen A. Smith. If you misspeak and you do it on video, they play it because it gets page hits. People like people to make mistakes. But I mean, you can't take that seriously. I mean, not that you would think that that's who I meant, because I mean, come on, let's be real, okay? Dickinson had a great year when he went to Kansas from Michigan, made All America, had 35 and 40-point games, played great for them. So that was my point. I was who I was thinking about. I don't know why I said him because, hey, I slipped a slip of the tongue. Or maybe I saw a subliminal cut of him on TV or something, and it stuck in my brain. I have no idea. But the idea that you would think that that was what I meant, I mean, come on, please. Same thing with Pitino. He yelled at a player. Hey, have you watched the sideline? He yells at players the whole game. Doesn't matter what the score is. He's coaching against the methodology. He's coaching against performance. He doesn't care. He wants it to be done properly all the time so that it's done properly in the right spot. That's how you coach. I love watching him coach. I love watching him coach because you can tell when he's going to, and it's on the defensive end. See, he doesn't mind if you take a bad shot. But if you make a bad defensive decision or give a lack of effort or make a real defensive mistake, he gets very angry. That bothers him immensely, which is why Jackson has spent so much time in the doghouse all year. But he's not cut the rope on him because he knows that there's going to be a game where he's going to need him to come in and hit a couple of big shots, maybe tomorrow. I'm looking forward to this tomorrow. I can't tell you how big this game is for them. It is utterly, utterly, utterly enormous. Utterly enormous, this game for them. It really is. I can't even tell you how big it is. And I don't wanna I'm not trying to put too much pressure on them, but there is already so much pressure on them. This game will devastate them if they lose it. There's no way around it. Hey, that's where they are in this season. That's what you play for. You play to get to a point where you push everything into the middle of the table and you play for keeps. Tomorrow, they start to play for keeps. Now, they'll get to a point where if they lose, you hold your head up high. If they lose to Duke in a classic next week, you're gonna say, "Hey, they gave it their best." I think they should win tomorrow, but it's gonna take a really good effort. They're not gonna win with they're not gonna win with a suspect effort tomorrow. But to me, that's what the game's about. It's about coming full circle from last year, from the disappointment of round 2, the disappointment of the Arkansas game, and finally the chance to wipe away the Arkansas game. Don't think they've completely wiped the Arkansas game away. They can tomorrow. We'll see you after the games tomorrow.